Assalamu alaikum, my name is Hannah and this is Pepper and Pine. Welcome to day 14 of Qur'an Journaling. Today we're going to be doing ayah number 15 of Surah Kahf. So you can see a little glimpse at the Qur'an journal so far, and we're going to be working on a pretty simple drawing today, but it still takes a little bit of time. So let's begin with our word-for-word Qur'an. This one is fabulous. It has all of the markings for correct pronunciation, the English on one side, as well as the word-for-word translation. I also have my Ibn Kathir Tafsir. This one we're going to be using to refer to, but we also have a couple of playlists listed in the description box below for some lectures that I'm listening to that are helping me supplement this project. Lastly, I have my favorite resource. This is my Qur'an notebook. This is the one that I take the most notes in. It has the Qur'an on one side, it has English translation on the other side, and some blank spaces. I did have to add in some additional sheets of paper because I got pretty extensive with my note-taking. So the way that I start off this project is by listening or reading Tafsir on the ayah that I'm going to be working on. And once I have collected that information, done the research, and have a pretty good grasp and understanding of the ayah from a basic level, then I begin to write my reflections and my notes down in the Qur'an notebook. Sometimes I focus on a particular word or few words in the ayah in Arabic, and then I'll translate it into English and then go into a little bit more depth. And all of this is based on other resources. And on occasion, I will include in parentheses some of my own thoughts and reflections, just how I'm relating to the ayah, to the lesson, to the translation itself. I also have my Ibn Kathir Tafsir, and in this particular section, it is referencing histories that are from Christian sources. And so these details of the story are taken with that understanding. So they're not related to a belief that is without question, without doubt. This is history surrounding this situation. So there's a difference between what we're taking from the Quran as 100% truth, Allah's words, and then the history, which the history is fallible. So the history is what adds details to the situation and to the story. We are looking at the history surrounding this, has to do with a few details. And for the drawing, I'm drawing what looks like a little jail cell here on the top left corner of the page. And that's to illustrate an aspect of the history that may or may not have happened. So I want to be very clear on the things that are part of the tafsir that come from history versus part of the tafsir that comes from hadith or other ayahs in the Quran. So there is a possibility that once the youth had stood up to the king and had proclaimed their belief in Allah, that the king sort of restrained them, or maybe put them in a jail, maybe removed the clothing that showed their prestige in their community. Maybe they had some kind of special garments. It sounds like those clothes might have been removed. Maybe they were in clothing that prisoners had. Maybe they were restrained in a prison. There's a question about what occurs between the time that they are on trial and the time that they get to the cave, because there is this story break. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does facilitate an escape for them and a protection for them, but those details of whether they were restrained beforehand or not, that's part of the history. And so I have here a throne on one side to depict their trial and to show that they were being accused of something. So the throne is just as a representation of the king and the authority that the king had, and the accusations that they placed on these youth, who then placed the accusation on the king and the community. Ayah 15 reads, "These, our people, have taken for worship gods other than Him, Allah. Why do they not bring for them a clear authority? And who does more wrong than he who invents a lie against Allah? So in this scenario, the accuser, the king, has now become the accused, because the youth who previously in ayah number 13, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increased them in guidance, and then in ayah 14, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strengthened their hearts and made them firm. So they had the ability to stand up and to proclaim that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator. He is the creator of the heavens and the earth, and that these youth will take no other partner and will not, they said if they should believe what the community and the king believes, then it would be a huge lie, a huge disbelief. And now in this ayah, now they are saying, you bring the proof that what you are saying is true. Where are your clear proofs, your dalil, your evidence for this? And then the ayat ends with something quite profound, which has been repeated in the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that one of the biggest sins, a huge transgression, is to lie against Allah. And we saw earlier in the surah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was saying that it was a huge lie that people, and in this reference the Christians, say that God has taken a son. So they lie about what Allah is. They lie about Allah by saying that he has offspring. And this is unforgivable. This is an unforgivable sin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can forgive anything except for this. This is a huge, huge transgression. So this theme and this idea that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is warning you, warning us, warning people not to speak lies about Allah, not to associate partners with Allah, not to associate offspring, that Allah does not have offspring, does not have daughters, does not have a son. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is singular. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is warning those who would speak these lies against him that it's a huge transgression. So for the journal, I've done a throne to depict the king or the court, and the jail cell to depict this moment in between their trial and their opportunity to escape, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala facilitated, because they are taken in action and yet they're also praying to Allah, and Allah is answering that with their safety. And so we remember that even if the entire world conspired to do you harm, if it was not written for you, harm would not come to you. And if the entire world came together to provide you with good, if it was not written for you, it would not happen. So I have the Quran on the top corner. This time I did not do a word-for-word translation, nor did I add that to the Quran notebook. So if there are parts that I want to do, I will just include it in the next entry. And then I have the English translation, and then the remainder is all of my thoughts and reflections and the tafsir. So my Quran notebook journal has changed, and I've included more space for writing, and the illustrations are set apart from the writing rather than everything sort of layered on top of one another. And then I continued with these bricks just to give some interest to the corners and the sides of the illustration, because there's only just two things and there's not a lot of color, and I usually like adding a lot of color, so I added some purple for the chair of the throne, because purple historically was a sign of royalty. It was a color of royalty, so I did add that just to add a little bit of color. Here's a final look at the entry for today. I hope that you're enjoying this series. And if you are Qur'an journaling along with me, please tag me on Instagram. I would love to see your work. Don't forget to check out the blog post that accompanies this video. It has all of the links to the resources that I'm using, as well as pictures for each of the entries, as well as more of my notes on each of these ayahs. The link to the blog post is in the description box below. You can also find links to the playlist for the video tafsirs that I have been listening to. And if you'd like to see how we're Qur'an journaling on a daily basis, you can find me on Instagram at Pepper and Pine.